Utah, we have LaunchUp.
Thought about doing, a friend of mine ran for Congress, this last year or during the primaries, and he used an online town hall, which is basically a spiffed up GoToMeeting, GoToWebinar thing, and they charge him $25 for an online town hall per town hall. Have you thought about doing something like that?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, we've met with several elected officials and several candidates, and every time we meet with them, they give us better ideas of how we can monetize this. Well, have you thought about doing this? We'd pay for this, we'd pay for that. And so there's countless ways of monetizing it as we develop feature sets to meet those needs. So yeah, absolutely, we've looked at that.
So I'm curious, have you run into any challenges getting access to the voter registration data, and what's your authentication process like to validate that?
Don't want to get too far into what the validation process is. What we have found is there's a lot of organizations, elected officials, candidates who have access to those lists that are willing to share. We can go after the state Republican Party or Democrat Party, and they have those lists. They would want to utilize us to do polling and surveys for them, and so we'd be able to get access to that. And so there's ways that we can get it in every state.
Yes, I'll ask a question. What's been the support of elected officials? I noticed Jason Chaffetz's name up there, and I'd imagine he'd be supportive, but what's your response?
Absolutely. In fact, we've met with Jason Chaffetz a couple times, and we're in the process of scheduling a sit down with him. He has expressed interest. We just haven't had the time to really get into the details. We've been meeting with several local legislators and getting a lot of interest and excitement from them. In fact, they're starting to say that they want this to be their preferred method of communication. They want to stay away from Facebook. They want to stay away from Twitter. Even at a state level, they're getting 400 emails a day while they're in session, and they can't get through all of that. And so they are putting out the word to their constituents saying, please come here so that we can distill that down and I can process it. So we're getting really, really good responses from them.
I normally don't ask questions but this is too good to ask. So I really am anti-politics, but the reason is because I just look at it's a systematic failure. So this, to me, you kind of have two issues. On one side, you need to get the congressmen engaged,
yes.
the politicians engaged.
Yes.
But I think the bigger challenge is how do you get past the apathy and people like me who say, I don't care if I email Jason Chaffetz because at the end of the day, he's powerless. Nothing's going to change in Washington anyway. So what are your ideas around how you kind of maybe close that feedback loop to say, not only did Jason see what you wanted, this is what I want you to represent me on immigration, but then how do you close the feedback loop so that I actually say, and that actually mattered?
Okay, great question. And in fact, we've seen that locally inside the state, some elected officials don't want to engage. And so we're going to present the information anyway, and we're going to circle that back to their constituents saying that they did nothing with it. Here's the results of it. And so you can then hold them accountable next election. And unfortunately, that for some people, that's all it's going to be. But we do close the loop by reporting back what they did as far as bills they sponsored, how they voted on different bills, how that compares to the majority inside their district, and you can get all of that information. And so hopefully what it's going to show is with a little bit of effort and mobilizing my own personal network that I already have in LinkedIn or Facebook, I can impact and make a difference. I am a perfect example of somebody that was completely apathetic, and in fact, I wasn't even registered to vote until I started working on this. I had never voted in my entire life. I had nothing to do with politics because of that very fact. I didn't think that I really could make a difference, especially being in a state where I'm a part of the majority, and the majority is going to vote the way that they want to, regardless of me. And so that's why we built this, is to give that individual a voice.
And on what the meaning of Beco zone means?
Can I comment on what the meaning of Beco zone? I have no idea what that means.
why just registered voters? We've got apathetic people who kind of care enough to ask a question, you know.
There's a couple of harsh realities. Elected officials don't really care or aren't motivated to care about the non-voter's voice. You know, that's a harsh reality. And so what we want to do is really motivate you to register and start to make a difference.
Actually, there's another part of the answer to that, which is we're willing to give polls and votes and other things to non-validated users. So because the elected officials said, okay, I'm willing to listen to the anonymous person, but when it actually comes to tighter connections and comments and other direct messages, that's where we sort of said, you know what, you need to have registered all the way through in order for them to take the time to get all the way into it. But like just today, we posted on the homepage a vote on net neutrality, whether you think it should be or shouldn't be, because the FCC just extended their request to open for comment to the general public. And most of you probably didn't even know that, and they just did it yesterday. But that's the kind of thing that goes on every day in DC that we just don't hear about unless there's a place we can go to. So even if you haven't gone all the way through the validation, you can still express an opinion.
One thing that's interesting here, at least in my mind as I see the premise, is that, you know, when you take a sample of a group, when you're doing a survey or doing research, there's definitely a possibility here that the data may become skewed, because the reality is that people who care will come to here and frankly, they'll share their mind and heart. But the reality is there's a lot of people that are very apathetic. They're just probably not going to be motivated. So the data then, the data points that will actually help the elected official could potentially be skewed. How do you guys deal with that?
First of all, they're going to have access to the history of those individuals. That's part of the analytics package where they can get in and see what they've been active on over time. We want it to be very, very simple. And so if you have, you know, maybe there was another issue that got you involved 6 months ago, but you have expressed some level of interest in this, and all it is once you've validated with us, it's a click of a button to have your voice heard. And so we want to eliminate some of that apathy by making it super simple for you to do from the comfort of your own home. You don't have to go out and march and rally and protest and picket. You're done.